Cool. And we are officially live then for another episode of Dark Bites, where as always, I am your host, Rick Hipson. Most importantly, I am here with none other than the Richard Chizmar, publisher of Cemetery Dance and author extraordinaire. Rich, thanks so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are over there.
Oh, my pleasure.
So,
Thanks for asking me.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we're getting to the truth of the matter here, can I assume that you're probably using this conversation as an excuse to give your signing arm a bit of a break?
Eh, no, I'm all good with the signing. My signature is, if you've seen it, it's pretty messy, so it's pretty easy to just keep scrawling it out. I've never had a problem with that. I've been fortunate.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm waiting for the time where it's kind of your name is just, the author formerly known as Richard, now just known as X, where it's just
Yeah.
an X on a sheet of paper here.
RC,
So,
just throw my initials out there.
exactly. Yeah. So no, that's amazing. I think I mean, one of the most impressive things about you, Rich, that I've been following over the last little while is I would think that a guy at your caliber, where, certainly with Cemetery Dance alone, even, and some, the hundreds of short stories you've got out there on the market, some of the, obviously your standalone books, the novels, the collaborations with folks like, this guy named Stephen King.
Yeah.
I would think that your name alone should be all the marketing that you really need, but I can't think of a guy out there that's as busy of a marketing machine as you've been. It's
Yeah, it's
incredible. You really
interesting. I was going to say it's interesting because it really all started when I signed the deal for Chasing the Boogeyman. And it's like, for the first, and I had other publishing deals with other, publishers, obviously Subterranean Press and Gauntlet and,
yeah,
Simon and Schuster to a smaller scale, but that was kind of the first big contract I signed. And I immediately felt responsible. It was an interesting dynamic switch for me, because usually I'm the publisher. Um, Almost 500 books compared to how many I've sold under my own name. But this time, yeah, I just felt like, okay, they have a lot of faith in me. They paid me a really fair amount of money, and they're going to do a lot of marketing. And for the first time, to that scale, I felt responsible. Like, I need to bust my butt and make sure they get a bang for the buck, and that they're happy with it. So yeah, that's kind of when it started. And I've had fun doing it. I've always kind of made
yeah.
the comparison to selling books to like selling cups of lemonade on the corner when I was a kid. And
Yeah,
that's how I feel. I'm like, you know what? There's kind of no nook and cranny that's too small to cover. Just, go out there and try to, reward your publisher for putting all that trust in you.
yeah, and I mean, it's been awesome to see it. It's very much, and I can certainly tell it's almost like you're the little kid at Christmas, but you become your own Santa Claus as well, which, and I'm so glad that obviously all of your readers and your fans out there, it's not just your own personal thing, it's all the readers out there that get to benefit from it too, with all the cool, marketing stuff from all the amazing, book plates and posters. I've got a few of them kicking around myself to go in that extra mile and actually creating Boogeyman masks. Like, how cool is that? And I saw that, I'm like, what a simple, ingenious idea. And it's, and I can tell, like, I'm seeing people getting it, and they're kind of, being I guess the law and arm of your marketing as well, by posting things up on social media, and they're very
Oh yeah,
happy to get all this stuff.
yeah. I mean, and that's the neat thing. I've been able to kind of create these relationships with a large group of people
Yeah.
who are just, really nice people, excited about reading, not just my material, but everyone's. And, but to see, I kind of nicknamed them the street team, just because they're so, they're so enthusiastic and helpful. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the neat thing about doing the marketing, is it's put me in touch with a lot of people who, just a quick glance on social media usually, but now you get to know them a little bit better, and they have a big hand in any successes that I have, which is, I'm indebted for that, but I'm also just, really excited about that relationship.
Right. Yeah, I guess it would be totally different if you're doing all this marketing and it all kind of fell flat. But obviously, it's you've got that close connection with the readers. You've got a pretty good sense of what they want, because basically what they want is um, more of what you're already passionate about with your writing and the work surrounding that. So I mean, all the stuff between the masks and the posters and the amazing giveaways that you've been doing as well have all been very, very well received.
Yeah, and they're
So it's
not,
been something else to see.
it's not rocket science. That's what I've, a lot of writers have asked, well, give me some marketing advice. And I'm just like, go to my Facebook and my Twitter page, because it's really just there,
Yeah,
be excited about interacting. You know, on a daily basis, it doesn't take that much time if you're, if you're disciplined with the rest of your workday. And it's just, if you have that genuine curiosity and interest in the readers, I think that's a big plus. And then the other stuff, yeah, I mean, signed book plates, and they're just bonuses that I think people appreciate. And yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for all of it. So
yeah, 100%. Well, I know I'm grateful for it as well. It's so cool. And I mean, you even went ahead and did a standalone book as well. I know, speaking of the Boogeyman, for some reason you can't quite see the title very well, but I'll bring it closer. You obviously know the title because you wrote it.
oh
This
yeah,
little guy here, Man Behind the Mask, I thought was an extra really cool bonus that people got just for saying, "Hey, Rich, can I have one?" Done,
yeah.
and you sent it out. I mean, it's doesn't get more of a simple connection to you than that. That's pretty cool. Where did that idea come from? Just to write up that little promo piece, the short story, the
It was
continuation.
actually an existing short story that was in a previous collection.
Oh,
And
okay.
it tied in really naturally, obviously.
Yeah,
And there's a couple like that. There's a couple that you can kind of look back and see that the Boogeyman, seed had been planted in me. And
yeah,
and I just thought it would be a perfect, kind of thing to match up with the book. And again, give some kind of bonus. And yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing that. It's fun. And like I said, I know people appreciate it. And so, yeah, we'll keep doing that. And it's worked so far. That's how.
yeah, 100%. I mean, the cool thing about that too, and even talking into a lot of the stuff that you're doing with certainly with Gwendy's Final Task and the trilogy, tying in a lot of pre-existing, very familiar territory with Stephen King's world, certainly with his tie-ins to the Dark Tower as well. A lot of the fans, and I mean, myself included, love to see these little details and think there's something hidden in there. What is really going on, of course, with the Dark Tower and the cover of Gwendy's Final Task. He didn't screw around with that. And as advertised, it's not just one of those things where you see something seen on the back of a movie and you're excited to get the movie, and that scene never materializes. That definitely does play a factor into it. And I know with
Yeah.
reading The Man Behind the Mask, actually, I'm a little disappointed in a way that was pre-existing before, because I was trying to read into that and see how that would tie into the sequel, thinking, oh, you're hinting at this, but maybe you still
Well,
are. I
you
don't
know
know.
what? I think maybe subconsciously I am. That's the neat thing is you find all these kind of little happy accidents along the way, and you're like
Yeah,
I said, you kind of look back and you're like, yeah, the seed had already been planted, and I was kind of tiptoeing around different kind of plot ideas and story ideas, scene ideas in previous short stories. So yeah, I'm gonna have fun working on the sequel, and well, I actually am having fun working on the sequel, but still a little ways off. But yeah, it's all there. I believe that. I think the best things that have ever happened in my stories and books are those kind of happy accidents that I think are have been planted somewhere in the basement of my brain or in the back of my brain, and they just surface when I need them to.
yeah. You definitely get in touch with your inner Bob Ross in that way, where it's like you might get an accidental brushstroke and it turns out to be your next big masterpiece kind of thing. I know even with and kind of last I'll say really about the marketing, and that is that I thought it was pretty cool when you did a video as well, talking about a lot of the challenges of the actual print itself, of getting all these books out there. Of course,
Wendy,
there's
yeah.
a worldwide shortage of paper and such. I know a lot of folks been affected by that, to the point where Gwendy's Final Task actually has two of the borders, the one gray, one green. I think if I was in that position, I'd be like, oh crap, I wanted this to be consistent. People are gonna say, what's this guy doing? What is does he got some purple ones and polka dot ones out there too? What's this guy doing? But of course you turn that around. And I mean it is a pretty cool thing too, that for the completists out there, they're gonna want two copies. They're probably gonna want to buy two copies of them, for
Well,
themselves, which is
what's
just
funny is I
genius.
never would have went there
Sure.
until I started hearing those initial murmurs of, well, wait a minute, now I need both. And I was just like, all right, I need to do a video and address this. And we had planned
Yeah.
to all along. I mean, I remember I made a phone call to Stephen King and I told
Yeah.
him ahead of time, I said, all right, look, this is the challenges that we're facing over here. And I want to make sure you're okay with this. We're going to have to do this and this. And he's like, no, absolutely. I understand. And, he was having talks with Simon and Schuster people about the same
Yeah.
kind of thing, not different covers, but just, paper supplies and pub dates and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone in the publishing industry, like you said, is kind of dealing with it. And the fact that we were able to get it out February 15th and not delay it was kind of a miracle. And because that was the initial thing. Well, you see, I mean, Stephen Graham Jones and a lot of authors within the last month have come out and said, hey, my book's bouncing back to this date.
Yeah.
And that's why. It's all about printing delays, and it's all about paper shortages and that type of thing. So yeah, we kind of scrambled, and I'll tell you, it cost us, in some cases, and I've said this in print, but like the gray covers, they cost us 3 times the amount of the others because they're done in a different way. They're done quicker. And you know what, that when you're talking about tens of thousands of copies, that cuts into, profit margin and everything else. But for us, it was just more important that, the book had been advertised for a long time for that date. We had all our distributors and booksellers were really excited, and we just really didn't want to swoop in and say, it's going to come out 60 days later or 90 days later on this. We wanted to do whatever we could do to meet the purchase order dates and get them to them. And even then there was on pub day, there were plenty of Barnes and Nobles and stores that were still waiting. And fortunately, most of them seemed to get them in that Thursday and Friday, but yeah, there's, it's just the way of the world right now.
Gotcha. And how does that work? I know it might be a little bit different for your books compared to say some of the smaller guys out there, but obviously you've got to reserve the shelf space at the bookstores as well. And if they're waiting a little bit longer, then I would imagine, does that take a bigger cut for you as well? Like, do you have to pay extra money to sort of, reserve the book spots, or is it a matter of shorter
What's
time on the
interesting
shelves?
is a lot of the big chains aren't doing that anymore. They're not doing co-ops and that type of thing. They're really just, which is an interesting decision on their part, because you would think now more than ever they would want to collect extra fees and all that. But yeah, we found that no, and fortunately the pre-order numbers for the book were huge. So yeah, it's but it's all up to the individual store, I think. We're out front on 90% of the stores, but I'm still hearing from the occasional person that says, it's a new Stephen King book and it's just only shelved in the back in horror or that kind of thing. So it's up to them, but we're up front in most of them, which is great.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And it is interesting. The different stores, they seem to have their different, I guess, autonomy of what they can, what they can't do, what they're afraid to do, that kind of thing too. I know even when I was shopping around with some of the posters, some of the bookstores like, yeah, we'd love to have that. Great. Yeah, bring that on in. And other folks are like, well, we'll take the book plates, but if we do the posters, we got to do this and that. And I'm not sure if that's going to work for us, kind of thing. So it's very interesting.
I heard from someone yesterday who said, I delivered them to 2 independents and they were thrilled. And the Barnes and Noble manager said, absolutely not. They can't take anything unless it comes through official channels. And you know what? I'm sure that's the rule. But again, there were another 60, 70 Barnes and Nobles that took them, gladly, and probably, a similar number that, actually wrote in and emailed me and requested them. So,
cool.
I think it's up to those individual stores. And again, that personal connection with their customers and their readers and or the other 100%. Ones that kind of want to go and follow the rules. So.
Yeah, I think, the ones that just don't know any better, the ones that actually appreciate and fully understand what it is they're being presented, that I think is pretty unique for the stores as well. I mean, I don't think they're probably accustomed to that, and that might even be a part of it too. They're just thrown off by, I've never had this experience before. I don't know what I should do with this. So I'm just going to err on the side of not being questioned. So
exactly,
which makes a lot of sense. So, and I know regarding with kind of going back as well to to Gwendy as well. I love the fact that, again, you tie in. It's such a neat wrap up that you do in the final task for folks that have followed along with Gwendy as well through her journey so far, through obviously the button box, magic feather, and then Gwendy's final task. It's a big, such a bold statement to put the Dark Tower on the front cover as well. That was a lot of initial excitement that spawned, initially, and for a good reason as well. Was that was that always the case that you wanted to tie those in? I know you mentioned to me, Rich, that even when you took over the button box from Stephen King, that said, "Here you go, incomplete, run with it, see what you can do." You ran with it, and I know you were kind of very nervous as well about doing that tie-in and kind of taking things back to the town of Derry. You weren't sure what the reception was going to be, and you'd mentioned to me in a previous chat that Stephen King was very excited about that. Uh, as far as that tie-in with Wendy's final task, and obviously we can't say too much more about that because we don't want to spoil anything. Was that
Right.
always the plan, or was that another situation where you're like, let's see what I can do with this one, and just kind of buckle up, and you went for it?
Yeah, no, you know what? That's the interesting thing is Steve and I never really had a plan with this. It really was just the case of two writers, joining together to have some fun
Yeah,
and see where Wendy took us. Um, I know I've seen a lot of reader comments that say, oh, of course, right from the very first book, Button Box, we knew this would connect to the Dark Tower. And
yeah,
well, sometimes the readers know more than the creators. So,
yeah,
Steve and I never really discussed that. I mean, when it came time to start the third book, I've said it before. Initially, this was
yeah,
his idea of Wendy getting rid of the box the way she does. But a lot of the other stuff just kind of grew organically, from the story. And I was the one who took us to Derry, like you said. Um, introduced a lot of connections to past storylines in the Stephen King universe. I think by the time the third book came, yeah, Steve knew that this was plugging into that Dark Tower universe, but pretty much everything does, whether it's on the forefront of the story or not. It eventually, there's a connection or two. So the interesting thing for me with Final Task is I feel like it presents a lot of these connections and a lot of these Easter eggs, but I also feel like it leaves a lot of them unanswered. And that's exciting to me, because then, maybe Steve and I will come back later and think, hey, let's answer some of those questions and go back. So who knows?
exactly. Well, you're very intuitive, because obviously you knew that was going to be my next question, to tie into that as well. Because no matter what happens, whether you take I don't know, the Highlander route and make all the characters, or the key characters in Gwendy's final task immortal to continue on for as long as you need them to.
Right.
Uh, but that tie-in, of course, with the Dark Tower mythos alone, I mean, you could expand this thing indefinitely.
Or Gwendy could pop up in other stories that are all Steve. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of, there were a lot of different thoughts that came to me as we were writing it. Um, and it's interesting because, like I said, we've never really planned ahead. The second book happened because I woke up one morning with the idea and said, hey, Steve,
yeah,
I think I know what Gwendy's been doing. And there was no, hey, let's write it. Hey, I want to write it. It was
yeah,
just, this is what I dreamt last night. And that's what, gave us the second book. And for the third one, and Steve talks about this in a couple of the interviews we've done for the book. It was one of those rare times where the entire idea kind of came to him in a flash. And when I say the entire idea, I'm
yeah,
really just talking about the idea of the space station and how it gets
yeah, Meth.
there, and Richard Ferris. Yeah, the MF. Because the rest of it we made up as we went. And like I said, just, that was without, I hand over a chunk of pages and I didn't give him any clue where I thought it was going next. And he would do the same thing back to me. And we just happened to have, kind of, somebody said the dynamic duo, and I laughed when they said that. And I'm like, in
Yeah,
the case of this book, it really felt that way, because there were no speed bumps, and it was just a lot of fun. And we probably could have, kept writing and done something twice this length and fleshed it out more, but the length felt right. And but yeah, I look back and I'm like, well, there's a lot of years in between book 2 and 3. We could always go back and, you know,
Prequel and
but
all the fillers and
yeah, we're just gonna, I think, you know, and we've never ever discussed it, but let's, you know, who knows? We'll just see if he wakes up one day with an idea, or I do, and maybe we'll revisit.
yeah, I mean, I could totally see you guys been working it very, very well. You know, you guys both, you know, dynamic duels, getting back to the roots. I mean, that's a story that sells itself, and maybe come up with some sort of you know, short story collection of maybe other people that have had, you know, the box over the years and what they've been up to and what they're doing and how it changed their lives. I know that was a lot more hinted at as well. Whereas the first two books, the spotlight was, I mean, you knew that the box had been around, but spotlight, of course, being on Gwendy, whereas this was the first time that it was even consider the consequences of other people having the box and actually talking about some of the folks that have had it and where what that, you know, what path the box let those people down.
Right.
You know, by contrast of what happened with Gwendy, I could see that going on.
Yeah, there's a lot left there.
Yeah.
There really is. So, like I said, we've never discussed any of that stuff. We'll just let it settle out there in the universe, and if it comes back to us, that's a good thing. I would love to do that again.
Exactly. And I guess until that happens, or if that happens, hopefully that happens. You know, it sounds like this might be a good time for you to maybe toss the ball over to Steve and let him maybe do something on his own with that, because I swear it seems like, and it's cool that I know we were supposed to have this chat a few weeks ago, and I really appreciate you being flexible and pushing out here. I feel like every week something big happens in your life that I'm like, oh great, well now I can talk about that, or now we can talk about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, it's been a snowball the last
Yeah.
last month or so, but you know, as is always the case with when news breaks, it's always been in the works forever, and you're
Yeah.
kind of just waiting. So yeah, we kind of had a bunch of dominoes fall in the last month, and it's all been great stuff and exciting stuff, and that's probably why I look tired this morning. And but I'm excited.
Yeah.
You know, there's good stuff happening.
Yeah, and I know the big thing too that's happening is gallery. They really stepped up to the plate, and I know you posted the article on your Facebook page as well about you know, the six-figure deal that they put together that's to help you get really excited, and everybody else really excited about a sequel to the Boogeyman, and you know, another suspense novel thriller that's going to be coming out as well, which I guess that kind of puts you up in that top echelon then. So I suppose if you know, anything that you and Steve might do later on, so I guess he's going to be collaborating with you. I think you've been collaborating with him up to this point, but now that you've sort of hit
Yeah.
that home run, I guess now it'll be Steve collaborating with you moving
No,
forward, huh?
it'll still be me going along for the ride no matter what. But yeah, no, I'm really happy that Simon Schuster and Gallery and my editor Ed Schlesinger, you know, that we were able to do this. You know, my agent Kristen is awesome, and she knew I was happy. And yeah, I you know, I had the idea for the sequel, no intentions of that when I finished the book. You know, reader responses to certain things made me think, huh, and still I wasn't kind of ready to bite the bullet. But one day I was out mowing the lawn and riding around, and I thought it came to me, the idea for a complete first chapter with a real kick in the face at the end of that chapter 1 of a sequel that would really tie into the first one and I think in a smart, creepy way. And I was like, you know what, I think I want to go back there and do that. And I promised Ed and Kristen, you know, both. I'm like, look, you guys let me do this one. I'll never write about myself as a character again, because that's such an interesting thing. But
yeah.
I was just, I was like, yeah, I really want to write this one. And I know the downfalls of sequels, you know, not being as good as the first one. And I know all the, you know, the marketing challenges it'll present. I said, but, you know, I'll work hard to make it work. And yeah, they were very receptive, and we were able to make it work. So yeah, I've got the next year of my life kind of planned out for me.
Nice. And I guess that also answers that question that's the $1 million question that's worth about 2 cents, where everybody's always asking, you know, where do writers get their ideas from? Clearly for you, it's the front yard.
Yeah. I was trying not to ride into the pond, you know, like usual. But yeah, no, it came to me. And like I said, you know, that's really all that came to me, with kind of an overall theme hovering above that. But the first chapter was was so vivid, and the last, those last few lines to it were such a punch in the gut that I thought, anyone who read and like the first one is going to be on board by the time they get to the end of the first chapter. So I think I've got to try to figure out the rest.
Yeah, and I know you, speaking of Easter eggs and stuff with a lot of your stories in Stephen King's as well. Um, you mentioned, and again in a previous chat that we had, Rich, about when I'd asked you regarding the interview with that you do with the serial killer in the first one, and the Boogeyman was so poignant and so realistic and unsettling that I could have swore that you talked to a real life serial killer. And I know you mentioned when I asked you about that, you hinted ever so subtly that you would like to explore the connotations of that conversation. You might want to explore that a little bit further in some future works. Do you think that is that kind of the catalyst for the sequel, or is that what transpired in that conversation going to sort of bleed into the sequel, or
There's a little
play
bit
a
of
big
that
part?
there. I actually have some extensive notes for a completely different book that involves that, the idea
Oh,
of
okay.
this guy, talking to incarcerated serial killers
Yeah.
and just kind of crossing some lines and that turning into the story. So that's always kind of been there, but yeah, I mean, it, like Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
where you have someone who is behind bars, who has done all these awful things, and you're in a position where you're a little dependent on that person. So yeah, I've always been intrigued by that idea. That'll come into play some in the sequel.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it is about the kind of fascination that we have with evil and people who
Right.
do these things. And, it's a very real thing. And, from the groupies to the people who actually, marry, get married to these people and just, even it's there in pop culture, and I tried to look at that a little bit with the first one, where I was, I make my living being surrounded by, these dark things. And
Yeah.
the vast majority of it is just make believe stuff, make believe monsters. But then there are these human monsters that exist who really
Right.
do these things. And, where is that line that you don't want to cross? Because that fascination from all of us readers, movie viewers, movie makers, all of it, it's there. So that's to me always been the interesting thing.
Yeah, no, me as well. I mean, that's why I've always been drawn to horror as well. And I think a lot of folks have, and why I think it's the best genre out there as well, because it really does explore those dark facets of the human condition. And I think that in order to fully understand the great things that people are capable of and to appreciate that, it's important to understand, the not so great things that people do. And I know you mentioned, kind of where that line is. I think a lot of the times it's a pretty blurry, sometimes even invisible line where you're not really sure, um, where at what point of the footsteps did you actually cross over that line. And a lot of times it's very similar. There's, for one of the things I love about horror, of course, and reading about stuff like the Boogeyman, and even some of the aspects of Gwendy's, the series of Gwendy as well. When, especially when you have something at a crossroads and they make a choice one way or the other, what pushes them one way or the other, when there's no
Right.
discernible reason for them doing that. It's just simply how they're built, how they're designed, but then exploring things of, okay, well, maybe there's something we could have seen in that, maybe there's something we could have done about that, or maybe there's nothing we could do about that except what we can personally do about it, and how it affects our lives and things around us. So I always find that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a really thin line that exists between just natural curiosity and then
Yeah.
fascination, and then you have obsession, and when it comes to that, in society, like we both said, the lines are really blurry. And
Yeah.
I think once you cross certain lines, it's tough to go back. But
Yeah.
it even applies to like true crime. Some people read it just because there's a genuine curiosity in the human nature and how investigations are handled and all that. And then
Right.
I think you have a certain percentage of people who are reading that stuff and, getting off on the violence and the, just the tragedy. And it's yeah, I mean, I'm like the most optimistic guy out there, but I'll be the
Yeah.
first to say it's a dark world out there, and there's a lot of those blurry lines, and that's what's always fascinated me about
Yeah.
the human monsters, is because they're us. You know,
Right.
they're there, and they live next door to us, and they're in line with us at the grocery store. And to me, that's the most frightening thing, and the
Yeah.
most the most, no matter how much material I've read or watched, um, or even written about it, that's still the most difficult thing for me to grasp, is that they're right there next to us. They're just wearing masks, and that's, to me, that's terrifying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Same as well. I mean, if somebody could be, I don't know, packing your grocery bags one day, working at the store, and they could be filling body bags the next day or something like and then I love that about the boogeyman as well, that you never really know who he is, and you don't know if he's the guy that, you know, who of course plays the main character in that book. It could be one of your great friends. It could be, maybe even a family member. You don't know, somebody you went to school with, somebody that you just finished sweating up a storm playing basketball with out on the courts, and
Could have been
you know,
me. I could have been the ultimate unreliable narrator, and I know
yeah.
several people who were like, I was convinced it was you halfway through the book. And so yeah, that's again, that's where the
Yeah,
fascination lies, and that's where, all for me, that's where the such terror, lies, because it's happens all the time, unfortunately.
yeah, no, 100%. So, and is it safe to say then? So I guess the man behind the mask and the boogeyman. It sounds like he's going to play more of a, I guess, a prominent role in the sequel. Then it's going to be more from his perspective, much like Silence of the Lambs, or
I'm working hard to make it not Silence of the Lambs too.
of
So
course.
it won't quite be that. It's yeah, I mean, yes and no to that question. He'll
Okay.
definitely play a role in that, but and we'll see. I mean, I don't work from, unless the idea is all like really, again, like dominoes, just kind of
Yeah.
start falling in line. That's when I really extensively outline, because I don't want to forget, because I've learned my lesson too many times. That's a great idea. I won't forget it. I don't need to write it down. And then the next day at lunch, it's like, what the hell was it?
Yeah. Worst
Especially as
words to live by.
yeah, especially as I get older. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of surprises left for me in the writing of this, where I'm like, I think we're
Perfect.
going left because we've gone left this whole time, and then all of a sudden, we're going right, and then we're going in circles, and that's the
Yeah.
neat thing for me, is most of the cool stuff kind of just happens like that.
Very cool. And regarding that as well, like, so now that you've got a huge deal, I'm going to assume, like, as far as publishing goes, like the biggest that you've ever had to date. How does that
Yeah.
change things? I mean, how does that change what you do, how you do it over the course of those couple of books? I mean, does it buy you more time? Like, are you able to go and maybe, I don't know, go and visit some penitentiaries and talk to some bad
Yeah, if I feel
people?
like
Are
I need
you?
to, yeah, if I feel like I need to do that, it certainly does. Other than that, it really doesn't change anything for me, because with Boogeyman, I wrote the manuscript first, and I got a
Yeah.
really great deal on that, which I was just so grateful for and surprised by. And then I just dove into other stuff right away, trying to catch up. But yeah, it doesn't really you know change anything, because it's still the same work. It's still the same routine for me, and um even before I'd be writing the books even if I didn't have the contract, let's just put it that way, and we'd just be selling them after the fact. So it's a little bit different in
Yeah.
that regard, but I don't, someone asked me if I feel more pressure, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
because they're good people to work with, and if something came up and I needed an extra month or whatever, but I'm more likely the one who will turn it in a month early, and just because once I'm into a story, it tends to come pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I
And also,
imagine.
writing the Gwendy books with Steve has definitely taught me how to work under pressure, and there's no pressure from Steve, but
Yeah.
I've told the story a million times, the amazing, never even dared to dream it kind of moment comes when it's like, hey, I'm collaborating with Stephen King. And then very shortly after that comes the, holy crap, I'm collaborating with Stephen King. How am I going to
Right.
do this? So after being able to do it a few times, it gives you confidence. Someone asked me that from Simon & Schuster in a YouTube thing that's going to come out today,
Cool.
actually, about what I learned and what I
Yeah.
gained from. And that was one of the things I said. I said, well, no matter how much writing you've done in the past, you can't help but gain some confidence from, from the experience, because, I'll never have a bigger, Steven Spielberg could throw a 1,000-page book on the desk in front of me tomorrow and say, I want to pay you a bunch of money and put your name up on the screen to adapt this, and you only have 60 days. And it wouldn't even measure up to,
Yeah.
kind of the challenge that was in front of me with King, because, he's kind of my literary hero, and he's responsible for me doing what I'm doing for a living, for the last 35 years. So yeah, you get confidence from
No
that.
pressure.
So when I look at a contract or not a contract, or whether I'm doing it on spec or whatever, it's just like, you know what, one way or another, I tend to do things the hard way, but I'll get there in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably what's helping, maybe Steve be, continue to be so prolific and banging the books out like he was in his 30s again. I'm sure that's what he learned from you, is that, he's got the chops to run with the young kids in the genre too. So
Well, he just loves to write, and that's what, people ask
yeah,
me questions all the time, most of which I don't answer.
yeah,
But that's one of the ones I'm always happy to answer, is just he's an inspiration, because he's in his 70s, and he wakes up every day and writes, and he enjoys doing it. And it obviously has nothing to do with the money or the fame or the
right.
acclaim. It's just that this is what he was meant to do. So he's still continuing to do it with great enthusiasm and great humor. And yeah, I'm inspired by that every day.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine you live, and I imagine it's inspiring for you too, because you're also living that as well. And you're also probably seeing a lot of what you do reflected in what Steve has done as well, and thinking that, okay, yeah, this is the right path. This is the right thing to do. It's the good thing to do. Maybe the important thing to do for you, because I'm sure that when everything you've done with Cemetery Dance, the publications with your own line of books, your own writing itself, you wouldn't be successful if this wasn't something that kind of made its way into pretty much everything you do. I'm sure as you're watching TV, you're signing book plates. I'm sure as you're out watching a ball game or watching, maybe your own boys playing sports, there's probably an inkling something's working in the back of your mind as well. The next great idea. It's probably it's just who you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, unfortunately, I knew that from a really early age,
Yeah.
that this is what I was supposed to do. And that, you have those moments along the way where that idea is very much reinforced. And yeah, I tell people all the time about, those first 10 years working, creating Cemetery Dance were rough years. We made no money, but I was loving what I was doing. I was working crazy long hours, crazy financial risks to, keep going with very little reward, and no guarantee that it would pay off.
Right.
But, I loved what I was doing. I believed in it. So just kept plugging forward. And fortunately, a lot of things, fell in place to help us be successful. But yeah, no, there's those moments along the way where, that, okay, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So just keep doing my thing and it'll work out.
Perfect. And as far as other things working out as well, I wonder if I can put you on the spot here for a little bit, Rich, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I guess worst case scenario is you can claim a technical glitch and just shut the computer down. But regarding movie stuff as well, I know you talked about that a bit with Gwendy. That there's I guess a production company that's in the works. They're putting some crew together, and I know there's a star to play Gwendy who's been selected. And understandably, you couldn't really say much more than that. Has anything else developed in regards to that you can
Yeah,
talk
no, I
about?
can't
Or
really say anything other than just, and there's actually not a star in place.
oh, my mistake. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks
no,
for
that's
correcting
fine.
me. Okay,
But there's definitely a good production crew as far as, producers, and we've, I should have news soon. I got an email from Steve's film agent just last week with an update about that. And yeah, it's, it'll happen. That's
yeah,
kind of how I look at it is, people are like, my God, the Boogeyman from Steve is in production right now, an old short story, and so many
yeah,
other things. And they're like, Gwendy seems perfect. And I'm like, I think Gwendy is perfect, especially for this time in the world and these times
100%.
here in this country. and it's such a female centric story that I think it could be very powerful. But
Yeah,
I've always just looked at it and I'm like, you know what, when its time is right, it'll explode out there. And hopefully that's soon. I mean, it was a really positive update that we got last week.
yeah,
And I think
good.
we could see things in the press, certainly by summer, I think,
Okay.
about it. But who knows? That's one of those ones where, yeah, I'm just kind of laying back and waiting because I think, I have a lot of belief that it should happen and that it will.
Perfect. Well, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, definitely looking forward to that as well. And I mean, the cool thing about with Gwendy is that I mean, I know when I did my review of it, I referred to it. I think it's fairly accurate. I think a lot of people would refer to it the same way, where it's very much there's a very fairy tale esque aspect to it as well, where you've got this, obviously this magic in there, this intrigue, very childlike curiosities that are in the works of it, as well as the very mature emotional portions of it, as far as growing old, severe consequences for choosing, I guess, the easy way, the easy options in life, and what you have to do at the end of it all to try to make up for those consequences. And I think it really works for a lot of different media outlets as well. And I know, and I feel comfortable mentioning this to you, but this isn't putting you too much on the spot because it has been mentioned publicly before. But another guy out there who's making the waves in the Gwendy verse is, Brian Keane.
Right.
I understand that he's working on some stuff as well. Is there anything that you can share with regarding that and when we might be able to see something? I know Brian hasn't announced anything specifically
Now,
as far as the what and the when, but
there's a whole team in place for it with Brian, doing the writing part of it. And I've seen big chunks of the script, which is wonderful.
yeah,
We have an artist, a main artist who is wonderful. And again, she sent an update probably as recently as 2 weeks ago. So again, I think
okay,
that's
yeah,
something that's
cool,
going to gain momentum in the next few months, and hopefully again by summer. I think
yeah,
it could be an interesting summer for Gwendy. A lot of stuff out there, but yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll let Brian, say more about it when
sure,
we're all ready. But we've got a whole team in place, and I think it's a natural for that kind of a graphic adaptation.
yeah,
And the neat thing is now there's 3 books. Now there's a complete arc, but with plenty of holes to fill in. With other people's imaginations, and that's something that's being discussed movie wise too. Is should it be should the first book be a limited series, and then the second book, and then some creative Castle Rock type fill-ins the way that
yeah.
Abrams did. So who knows, but there's a lot on the table, and it's exciting to kind of just sit back and watch it.
Very much. And I could totally see that working. I could almost see that almost being a necessity to have, if you're going to go cinematic with this, with Wendy, to have it as a series, because there's so many great side trips that you could take that would maybe come as a bit of a, I don't know, an interruption or an intrusion in an actual movie. Whereas in a series, you could do a standalone episode of, they're going over here and it ties in, but not directly. And then you can continue on with it in the next episode, and it would all come together in the end without feeling disjointed. I think it would work
Right,
really
and
well.
especially with the first book where we show such a span, such a range
Mm,
of her age. The second book takes place in a matter of a couple months.
yeah,
The third book, takes place in the matter of a couple weeks, I think,
yeah,
or a few weeks. Where the first one, we see her from what age 12, I think, up until she graduates from college. So
yeah,
to me, that would be, present some challenges as far as a single feature, but that we have good people attached. So it's kind of like I have faith in whatever they do. But yeah, ideally, I would love to see, a limited series with future seasons until we get to, the end of Gwendy's final task. And I think with such a good team there in place, they could really fill in those gaps between book 2 and 3 and that kind of thing.
yeah, 100%. And hopefully, once you get people that are intrigued to do that, they'll have the room to do that, to move forward with it. Now that some a lot of with this pandemic here, a lot of restrictions are starting to be lifted. Hopefully, that continues on, and people keep doing what they need to do to make sure we don't go back to last year, 2 years ago. And I think that's It almost seems like you said, the domino effect. Hopefully, with all these ideas coming together at about the same time, that hopefully these restrictions are going to be lifted over the spring and summertime. That the film crews and the industries that actually want to be busy are able to be busy and not have these restrictions kind of slowing them down, or causing any of these roadblocks that it
Right.
has been causing. So
Exactly.
definitely something to look forward to as well.
And,
Um,
I'll say the same thing with the graphic adaptation is, Brian has
yeah,
that freedom to kind of, and we cover this very early on in the process with Brian and Keen, and that is, he has the freedom to expand the story, and to
yeah,
involve, past characters from the universe and Castle Rock and that kind of thing. So that's the exciting thing there too, is we're gonna, he's cracking the story open a little bit too. It won't be just a connect the dots type of adaptation. So that's exciting.
yeah, and obviously he's pretty well versed at tying in mythos from across the whole universe of works.
Right.
So he's of course doing that himself with his own labyrinth mythos. So I'd be really interested to see what he does with the Gwendy mythos. I'm
Yeah.
and the
Agree.
tie-ins with the Kin universe. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So the Kin and Chizmar universe. So let's not get that twisted.
No, I'm fine either way.
Perfect. So now, what is your writing schedule looking like right now, Rich? Like, what is it? Once you kick me off this chat, what is it you've got screaming at you to get back and finish the job on, or at least continue
You
the
know
job
what?
on?
Today, as soon as I'm off here, I'm going to go to the office and sign some more books. um,
Of
because I still have to sign a bunch for
course, you don't know.
retailers that we're sending to. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't, excuse me, I don't really have it's one of the things I've always wanted, is to be that person who wakes up and has breakfast and goes for a walk or a run, and then they come back and
yeah,
write from 10 to 4 or something like that. That's never really worked for me. I've always felt that it puts more pressure on me than relieves it. Um,
interesting.
so I kind of just write, when I'm in, like I referenced earlier, when I'm into the heart of a story, I get pretty obsessed with it, and I'm writing all the time.
Yeah,
And I'm taking my laptop with me to various places. And, my youngest son plays lacrosse for University of Virginia. So every weekend we're making that 3.5 hour drive. I'll be writing my laptop while Kara drives,
yeah,
that kind of thing. So I tend to write pretty quickly, because once I get to that point, I'm just like, I've got to get this story out of me.
yeah.
But it's once I'm there, it's never a problem. I'm just more of the problem is finding the balance, and that's always been difficult for me too.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. So
So yeah,
yeah,
I'll try to write every day, and again, once I'm into it, there's no question I'm writing every day, all day. But
yeah.
until then, I just try to have some semblance of a normal life. And sometimes I'll write 4 or 5 hours in the morning and then revisit it at night. Sometimes I've got to, whether I'm doing podcasts or interviews, or I've just have things, paperwork in front of me that I
Sure.
have to do, and then I'll make up for it at night. But yeah, it's a little different every day, which is why I think I love this job so much. Is every day is different, a different challenge.
100%. Yeah, I can kind of picture you as the sort of guy who's probably got like a laptop here, laptop there, one under your pillow, one over here.
Oh, I would take him when I'm cranking on a story, I'll take my laptop into restaurants for lunch, and my kid, Dad, and I'm like, well, number one, I don't want to leave it in the car. Someone might steal it.
Yeah, God
I
forbid.
get very like with the button box, it's
I
like,
was
I
just
can't.
thinking that, yeah, classified information,
Yep,
handcuffed to your wrist, the whole 9 yards.
exactly.
A hacksaw in case you forget the key.
Yes.
I could see all that happening. So I don't think I have to ask you. I've got a couple of notes I wrote down about things that you might be most excited about for the rest of 2022, but you've clearly already discussed all that. So I'm going to leave you with this, or maybe you can leave us with this, Rich. What are your final thoughts as we kind of wrap things up here? What is it that's yeah, what are your final thoughts as far as to
Yeah.
do, things you are excited about, things you're going to be doing next, to look forward
Just
to?
a sense of gratitude, that's kind of where I am, and that's what I wake up every day with. I know how fortunate I am to be. I know how fortunate I have been to be able to do this job for 35 years.
Yeah,
But writing has always been my first love, and I've for a number of years that had to kind of be put in the back seat because of publishing and the amount of time it would take and
Right.
responsibilities and all that. And I have a great crew of people working, with CD full time and part time. So I'm able to step back some, and for like the last, I don't know what it is now, the last 6-7 years, I've been able to, maybe not even that long, maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I've been able to really focus on writing. So yeah, I'm just grateful that I've had these opportunities, and that I'm able to kind of dive in and commit to them, and yeah, just feel like a very fortunate guy.
Absolutely, and we're fortunate as well. I mean, I didn't think it was any sort of coincidence that all of a sudden, last few years, you just started banging out books. As if you decided, hey, let's just write a bunch of books and get
Yeah.
some people on board here with me. So it's great that that's come together, and I can certainly vouch for the amazing team that you do have over at CD. As well. Anytime I've needed to reach anybody, anytime I've ever had any questions, concerns, anything I needed support with or help or otherwise, you've always had a great team of people there. From I've been mostly dealing with Blue Gillian on the website part of
Right.
things to Mindy, and they've all been just fantastic at getting in touch with.
Yeah,
So
they
very
work hard,
responsive.
and
Yeah.
I don't make their job easier especially when I am writing, because they're stuck
Right.
waiting on me. But yeah, they do a good job, and continue to get better. So good things ahead.
Perfect. All right. Well, we look forward to the good things ahead again. Thank you so much, Rich, for all the time, which you're obviously is of scarce supply for you. So thank you very much for sharing a little bit of it with us today.
Thanks for asking me back. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich.
All right, take care.
You too.